We're glad that you're here. And we will go ahead and officially kick this off. Yeah. Welcome. Thanks everybody for joining. This is promoted, I should say, as a Microsoft Copilot Roundtable, which is very, very different from a webinar or podcast or something like that. Now, some of you, including Amanda and Jeff, you were part of a roundtable that we had a long time ago, if you remember, right? It was called the SharePoint Roundtable. The SharePoint Roundtable was in the heyday of SharePoint, where SharePoint had such a huge name. Now, it still has a pretty good, big name, but now we're taking the same concept of having a roundtable, but we're doing it for Microsoft Copilot. So everything around Microsoft Copilot. Those of you who were not part of the roundtable, let me just explain a little bit how that's different than a webinar or some other event. Picture this, you're at a conference and at lunch, you're all sitting together and you're just eating lunch. Right? We're not going to be eating lunch here, that's the only difference. But you're eating lunch and you're talking to people from around the country, maybe around the world, who have come into this conference, in this case, Microsoft Copilot conference, let's say, and you're talking about, hey, how are things going with you with Microsoft Copilot? Do you have licenses? Yes. Are you doing anything with the licenses? What successes have you had? What failures have you had? And that interaction has always been, honestly, the best interaction, much better than just a speaker like me or someone just giving you information. This is all of us sharing information. Now, don't get me wrong, I do have a lot of good information. Amanda, myself, all of us have good information we can share, but we would love to hear from you because this is what this roundtable is all about. Everything make sense so far? Okay. So we're going to kick this off. This is our first roundtable for Microsoft Copilot, and we're going to do many, many more. The actual frequency of it is going to be completely up to you, and let's see how this goes. So we have folks from Comptroller of Public Accounts, Encompass Health, is that right, Amanda? And who else?
Yep, First Service Residential, Encompass, State of Texas Comptroller.
Yeah, one more is coming in. Port of Houston, Carolina's coming in as well. And all of you, looks like she'll be admitting pretty soon, to all of you, I'm sure, have licenses or are thinking about going that route and getting licenses for Microsoft Copilot. So we would love to hear from you as to what's going on and how are things going right now. I'll kick it off with one statement here. We as a company, VisualSP, talk to many, many, many folks like yourselves, including yourselves. We talk about things all the time. And it's the stories remain almost exactly the same across across everywhere, where we're trying various AI tools, specifically Microsoft Copilot, but we're trying others as well, like ChatGPT Enterprise or even Claude or things like that at the enterprise level. And we're finding that, yes, we are pushing this from our corporate level, but users are already aware and are using AI tools from their own personal level. And they're using mainly ChatGPT, but also some Copilot from their personal account, and then other tools as well. And now we're figuring out what's the best way for us to get them to understand what's the best way to use these AI tools in the work context and what not to use. So the whole governance and compliance around it. The actual implementation of Copilot, from what I've been hearing, is less than 10% usually in a company. So if you're a 3,000 person company, as we're talking about 300 licenses, things or less. Okay, so having said that, we would love to hear from you. If anybody wants to unmute and say, how are things going in your environment, your company?
I know, Jeff and Ting Ting, you're doing your COP. And I know you said you haven't done much yet. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and speak. So Ting Ting, who's on the call, and myself are with a Texas state agency, Comptroller of Public Accounts, down in Austin. We're a government agency, so we're in the GCC cloud. There's a lot of stuff, as we're finding out, it's not available yet for GCC. They're still perfecting some of the stuff. We're just now getting our feet wet. We had to procure licenses in order for everything to work. So we bought 50 licenses and we divvied those up, and basically we had to get some office the office had to be updated so that the Copilot shows up, and we got put in a special group from our O365 architect. So I actually missed a meeting today because I had no internet. So I don't know how that went. Ting hopefully was in the meeting, but we've just started. I mean, we're like probably 2 weeks into it. So I wish I had more stuff to report. I just don't. But we do have a team set up for it where there's communication. We have channels for different aspects of it. We did have a recorded training session with a guy from Microsoft who actually did a comptroller specific presentation specifically for us, which was kind of nice. And I went and looked at that. So it looks pretty cool, but Ting, you may be able to add more. For me, that's about all I can provide.
Yeah, I think, it's also depend on environment. Somehow, I went to the, with Texas, they have the state agency community call, but on that call, they say Copilot agent is available to GCC tenants, but our architects, like internal CPA architect said it's not available to us. Maybe it's different based on environment. And also the Copilot chat, I think there's one Copilot chat that's free of license and use the Bing search or that web version. And then so I think for us, for security reason, we disabled that. So what we have now is Copilot for the for Office applications, Outlook, and Teams. And then the problem is we don't have the new Outlook. We only have the classic look, so we don't get full functionality in Outlook client. And also tried, I don't know, maybe I'm not familiar with that. So supposedly you can just ask Copilot, hey, reply or draft this email reply for me, right? So I did that, and then it has a draft in the chat. And I said, okay, and there's a prompt, say, okay, save this draft. And I said, okay, save it for me. And then Copilot told me, okay, it's in your draft folder, but I went to see it, it's not there. So I don't know, it's just, we're testing, but things not 100% yet for us. So I don't know, it's our environment or, but based on the video we saw, Microsoft or all those YouTube videos, it looks super cool. Yeah, it's just, at least for me, I didn't feel it's very cool yet.
Not very cool just yet.
Yeah, it's because it's not working. And then the PowerPoint, so create this presentation for marketing trend, and it just tell me, okay, sorry, something went wrong.
That something went wrong is very, very prevalent, by the way. Unfortunately, happens a lot.
Yeah, I wish we had more to report. We just, like I said, barely getting our feet wet.
We'll go around and ask some others as well, and we have some things we can share too. Yeah.
I think we would like. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we want to get some good use cases. Since we are doing the POC and we want to learn a lot of good use case, and we'll bring back to our IT or those testers, and everyone can try out. So the POC is like find value for Copilot, and then if everyone think, okay, it can help us a lot, can bring value to the organization, so the management will go ahead, purchase the license. So it still depends.
Gotcha.
Can you remember any specific use cases for comptrollers that they might have mentioned in that training or that one session that you had with someone from Microsoft?
I remember the guy that was demoing said, can you give me an executive summary of everything the comptroller's office does? And it did it, and it was really pretty cool. It was like it was a Word document that had all the bells and whistles, and he demonstrated how you could go in and maybe change the tone make it maybe not so formal, but make it more in layman's terms. I mean, there were those options where you could, or be more direct, and then it would redo it and be a little bit more stern, or, perhaps, I haven't been able to get to it because my dog died, and so he did a thing, and then it literally comes in and says, "Oh, we're so sympathetic that your dog has passed away, and you probably had a lot on your plate," and it was kind of cool to see how it did that. But yeah, that was pretty cool. It's just, there's definitely a learning curve, and like I said, we're getting our feet wet, so we haven't been able to experience that yet, unfortunately. And it could be some of our settings. We're still trying to get all those, and it could be in our environment too, like Ting said. There's and our architect has told us, there's just not some stuff that's enabled for GCC yet. They're still ironing out things. So, as a result, some stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
I know that having more regulations in your environment, because you are, state of Texas, that probably comes into play, don't you think, Asif?
It does, obviously, with GCC specifically. Also, it's going to be a little bit different experience. Yeah, I know some others on the call don't have those restrictions. Amanda, who else can you think of that we can ask?
Well, I was wondering actually if Caroline had seen those same restrictions, because she's Port of Houston, and I know they have some probably
also GCC. Also,
That's
I call it the
right.
black and white version, basically. Maybe the 16 colors, and then GCC High and DoD is the black and white one. But we are not really even getting our feet wet right now. I think a big issue, and I feel like Asif, I've talked with you about this before, in some format, about it raises a lot of questions about the accessibility and visibility of content. And if you don't have really good control over who has access to what,
yes,
this doesn't provide access, but it makes it a lot easier for people to find stuff that they didn't necessarily know they had access to previously.
Yes.
I concur.
And
yes.
Yeah.
In a regulated environment is distasteful, I think, is the most polite way I can put it. It can be a big problem. And so what we are trying to do is, as much as possible, get our ducks in a row, see what we can do to make any remediations with permissions and access, and make sure that is as clean as possible before we go further into this new world adventure. So that at that point, we're not going to annoy or frighten a lot of people, in particular our InfoSec team.
That's a huge point, by the way, Caroline. I'm so glad you brought it up, and I'll give an example for everyone. Hopefully this makes sense. Let's say I was given permission, or everyone in the company was given permission to a document that was produced by, I'll use you, Caroline. Caroline made that, but Caroline didn't really mean to give it to everybody, but she did by mistake. Now, nobody knows they have access to it, so they're not actively going there or searching for it or clicking to get there. But when they ask Copilot about a topic which would have that information in that document, it is going to pull from that document because you have access to it. Caroline doesn't want that. Like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't intend to give access to it, but too late. The information is already out there, and that's scary. That's a very scary scenario. Having the data and the permissions and all that structure in a, your ducks in a row, basically, as they say, is super important before all this, the Microsoft 365 Copilot is unleashed, I should say, in the organization. So it's a good notion. It's a good scare to have.
We've had those same conversations.
Oh, yeah.
We have as most organizations do, probably a lot of site collections or sites. And you may have, granted, at the site level, oh, we'll just give the entire agency access, even though it's internal only. There might be people inside that, a lot of site, it depends on the site admin, how much of control they are. But there could be something that slips through the cracks. And a lot of times people don't go digging for stuff. But like Caroline said, if somebody searches, or says something to Copilot and it has access, and you have access to that data, it's going to surface it. And then all of a sudden you've got kind of a scare on your hands. And so agreeing with both of y'all, that is pretty scary in our environment too. We're a political office, so the last thing we need is for anything on the front page of the newspaper. Seriously, or we'll all be gone. So I mean, you have to be careful.
I think
Along
also
the same line. Oh, go ahead.
Microsoft. I feel like a lot of the examples they give they're easier to implement if you're a startup or a newer company. We've got 100 years worth of data, essentially.
Wow.
That we've been dragging around with us. And actually some of our data, it's more, I mean, a lot of the data that is that old is on paper, obviously. Some data we have to keep in perpetuity. And so we can't just sort of clean house and get rid of it all, because we have to hang on to it. So we drag all this data around from one system to the next, and things don't always work the way that you expect when you do a massive migration of old dusty data that have already survived 5 migrations. So it's easy when you see Microsoft do it and there's 3 document libraries in the whole company. That's just not what our scenario is like.
So true. Thanks for calling that out, Caroline.
I'm curious to hear what Susan has to say, because that's the healthcare industry. And are you seeing those same concerns, Susan?
We have got to be the most paranoid industry ever. I mean, for good reason. I mean, I know government has to be the same way, obviously, but I mean, healthcare is under such attack constantly and I'm protecting patient data and just the ramifications of not being. So we're very cautious about everything. Amanda, you know that. I know you know that.
Yep.
And we're kind of sticking our toe in the water. We have the Copilot chat that we've let quite a few people have now. We do require that they go through a review by our architectural control committee and take training, and it's really hard to get access to it. But we probably have, 50 to 100 upper management that are using it. But the other, we want to do full Microsoft 365 Copilot, and I'm actually taking some 1 and 2 hour courses through New Horizons over this month and next, just for all the different apps, just trying to get an idea of how do we train people, what do we tell them, what is it like, what can we do, and come up with use cases. But that's as far as we've gotten, and we're always very slow to roll out anything new. So I was hoping to hear some folks today that I'm more of a taker, I guess. I was hoping to hear what cool things everyone else was doing.
I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
man.
go ahead.
One quick statistic, a recent interview by, I can't remember this lady's name at Microsoft, who mentioned that 1% of Microsoft customers currently have like agentified their company, AI agentified, all that stuff. So they're like really, really up there. 1%. 99% of others are doing some things and just trying to figure things out. So you are not alone, Susan, and everybody else. There's a lot of figuring out going on right now. I talk about all this stuff a lot on LinkedIn from what I'm hearing at conferences from Microsoft, from other MVPs and so forth. So I'll push out as much information as possible, but I'm telling you, do not feel bad. Everybody is going through this. And that's the reason for this roundtable, to figure this out together, see what's going on together. All right, sorry, Amanda, go for it.
No, you're fine. That's what I was going to say. I would say 99% of customers that I talk to say, we've tried a little, but it's like you get this tool and it can do all these things, but you have no idea how you should be using it and what you can do. Like there are no, I don't know. It's just such an open, there's so much you can do. You just don't even know where to start. So that's most of the customers that I've spoken with are in that same boat. They have it, they have some kind of testing going on, but yeah, who knows how to actually get it to be in a valuable, get it to a valuable state.
I heard this analogy. I can't remember. I can't even remember if it was for AI, but I think it applies. Somebody being given a Lamborghini and they have no idea what to do with it. You know, they don't know how to drive, and so they invite their friend over and say, "Look at this cool Lamborghini. It stores all of my stuff." And it's like, it does store your stuff, but that's not what it's designed for. And they have no idea that you can actually use a key to turn it on and like go places. And I feel like AI is a little bit like that, because it's still really is still so new, that we don't have established use cases to go back to. We don't have an equivalent car that we can go, well, I used to have a Porsche and now I've got a Lamborghini, so it's probably similar. We don't have any reference points like that. It's a totally new phenomenon, and so we've got to forge our way ahead and bumble our way through this with the help of things like this roundtable to learn from each other and to come across business cases. And I also think, while we're not using it officially at work, I also know that tons of my coworkers are using it in their personal lives. And I do actually think that helps, because I think people start to understand the things that it can do. And if people are more comfortable using it in their personal lives, it's less of a leap for them to use it in a business context.
So true. And great analogies, Caroline. Love it. So true. I'm going to share something really quickly here, because obviously right now, only thing that are being shared here is our cameras. Can you see my screen, Amanda?
Yes.
So I'm sure some of you have already seen some of my content out there on LinkedIn. This is something that I posted today, and this is what Caroline just said, reminded me of that. I see still people using general instructions like summarize this or write an email, but like, come on. If you were to talk to a person, would you just say something that generic? No, you would tell them exactly, in this particular case, context, role, what outcome you're looking for. So in this case, instead of summarize this meeting, you're saying, listen, I want you to act as my sales analyst. Summarize this meeting transcript into 3 client objections, 2 action items, write a follow-up email draft for me. Just be very, very specific as to what you want. The more specific the question, the more specific the answer, right, of what it's going to be. So it's like you were saying, the Lamborghini, Caroline, that that has been given. What do you do with it? Super important to understand that the language of this, or just the actual manual, I should say, in this particular case for Lamborghini here, is very simple. It's in English. It's you can use English to write the instructions that you want it to do or to where to want it to go. It doesn't require anything complex, which is wonderful. But we have to be extremely specific about what we want. I have a bunch of people actually who commented on that, like, yeah, that's exactly how we're going through. You're not alone. That's exactly what it is. In fact, actually, I did a research this morning, and I was also very specific about this thing. If you guys have not used a researcher, you definitely want to use that, by the way. Researcher agent, which is already built in, you can do some pretty amazing research in here. And I was doing some research about digital adoption platforms for Dynamics 365. Lots and lots and lots of good information it provides. This kind of research, a researcher person, human, it would take them days, maybe if not weeks to do, and cost a lot of money. And all this was in 10 minutes. It gave me the research, gave me the conclusions and everything. So pretty amazing stuff you can do these days.
Something that I can share how I use Copilot that I've found to be super valuable. I have a lot of meetings. I meet with a lot of people all the time, every week, hundreds of meetings a year. And sometimes I go, oh, someone was just talking about that. Can't remember who it was. So I go into Copilot and I say, look at my meetings for the last 6 months and tell me who was talking about this. And it will give me a list of, it could be this, it could be this, and I instantly can find it, instead of having to go through the transcripts of every single meeting or my notes for every meeting. And I mean, that just like light bulb went off, like, went on. I was, okay, this can tell me anything in my recorded meetings, who it was, when they said it, and what we all agreed on, or how, yeah. So I'm learning.
Yeah.
And like once that door opens and you realize, oh my gosh, this couldn't save me so much time. But you have to hear these use cases to even start thinking about them. So yeah, but man, its connection with Teams meetings that's pretty powerful stuff. I've also said, go through all of my meetings in the last 2 years and give me a 5 bullet point list of the top use cases for something, and it'll do it. And you can make tables, say, okay, who was that and when was the date that we talked about it? And I don't know, it's so powerful. But yeah, it's there's no user manual. I
think what we should
like
do, yeah. And this is exactly where we should have maybe the next roundtable or the one after, where everybody comes with a few prompts, like the one that you just mentioned right now, Amanda, that which prompt has been helpful to you and in which context has it been helpful to you? Were you in Microsoft 365? Were you in Dynamics? Were you in Excel? Were you somewhere else? Because those kind of things that's what it's all about. It's about sharing the prompts specifically and with each other. So what makes most sense. How about we call in Parth as well, if is willing to speak as to how things going over there?
Yeah, hey, everybody. No, I agree with everybody. I think, we don't have the privacy issues that, a lot of you have talked about. We do have privacy issues, right? Because we work with board members and residents of certain communities. But typically it's financial and things like that, which I don't really get into and we don't really worry about, right? That's what the salespeople get into. But yeah, to Amanda's point, I've used it a lot recently to summarize meetings, or I'm a sales trainer, so I do a lot of training, and so I need to learn first, right? And so a lot of my meetings are train the trainer, and fully understanding, right? If they give me a super detailed, nuanced, description, how do I dumb it down a little bit, right? How do I make it a little bit simpler? How do I make it an email format? Because I've found, I come from logistics where everything was, let's do a 45-minute training session. Let's do a 45-minute training session. Where here it's an email will suffice, or a short 2-minute recorded video and things like that. So I've used it a lot to say, hey, can you summarize what Brian said about this specific section during the meeting? Where it's been really helpful, because like Amanda said, I'm in a lot of meetings all day as well. And so I forget, and also frankly, my understanding of what Brian just said is not going to be as clear as what Brian said, right? If I can analyze specifically what he said, that's going to give me a much better idea of me already watering it down and then watering it down some more. Now we're like a little bit too simple sometimes. So that's been really helpful. And then one thing that we're working on, Amanda, and I know you know this because we talked about it a lot in our calls, is we want to use AI agents, and I've always called it like a nice librarian, where it recommends content for the salespeople, right? Hey, you mentioned that this board member is experiencing communication issues. Here is a communication piece of content that we have that you can recommend. Or, hey, you mentioned that board members have issues with, parking or parking violations or garbage violations or XYZ. And so that's what I'm currently attempting to use it as, what Jolene and I are attempting to use it as, is to use it as a recommended piece of content. Because honestly, the problem that we're facing is marketing has created hundreds of pieces of content across the country, and they're not being utilized, right? And so how can we utilize their time and their resources? Because they're spending time, and because it is residential, the content piece from California varies very differently than Texas and New York and Virginia and Florida. So making sure, the AI agent helps them get the correct piece of content along with the topic, right? Because we have had instances where somebody in Texas shares something in California, and well, did you know that Texas has water restrictions? And so very, very nuanced stuff that, we want to make sure they are sharing the right piece of content. So yeah, and I've been using it a lot. I use it a lot in my daily just personal usage. And it's been helpful. I think it's like Asif said earlier, I've been attempting to be as detailed as I can in my asking of prompts, right? Because I frankly, I use it a lot. So, hey, can you craft an email or can you do this? But I would say 90% of the time, it's not something that I would send. It's not my voice, it's not my cadence. Maybe it's way too friendly, and I'm a friendly person, but I'm not that friendly of a person, right? Or maybe it's way too aggressive. We're like, all right, we gotta have an intro. How was your weekend? Things like that. So I would say when it comes to writing emails and things like that, I use it a lot for inspiration. Because one thing that I tell my salespeople all the time is when you're starting something, whether it's a project, whether it's an email, whether it's, whatever it is, sometimes the hardest part is just starting it. Like, how do I start? Right?
Yeah.
And so I use it a lot for inspiration on, hey, I want to create a sales campaign on cleanup in Power BI and how would I go about doing that? And so yeah, I use it a lot for introduction, and then I make sure I really make sure to add my own voice to it and my own little flavor or whatever it is, just so it's not super aggressive and direct, because that's not the goal most of the time.
Yep.
So many
And now
good
people are
things.
getting, now people are getting a lot better at seeing, like if they read something and go, ooh, that sounds like AI wrote that.
That's
And
also
we don't
true.
want
Like,
that
as
either.
much as we all know we
Right.
use it, right? I completely agree. As much as, everybody knows that we're probably using it, I frankly, you're right. I do want to make sure it's not, hey, this Parth is not doing his work. It's this is not. Or Parth is clearly, has put thought into this and things like that. So making sure that, yeah, like I said, I like to use it for inspiration and more of a stepping stone a lot of times. And in Excel, I've actually used it a decent amount in Excel. I used to work in Excel a lot in a previous life, and when I was a data analyst. And I got away from it for a handful of years, and so I've been really rusty on Excel. And so it's been helpful to be like, hey, could I analyze these 3 columns only? And like, how do I create a pivot table again? And I want my pivot table to look like this. And is it possible for you to create a pie chart that shows sales contacts older than 6 months ago and this and that? And it's like 3 different if ands, and it works. It's really cool. It works.
Nice.
It's helped me, and I've even done that. Can you create a formula for me that would do this? And it does the whole formula, which so it's really nice. But I also said earlier, you have to be really descriptive, right? My cell is in B12 and my cell is in C15. Now make the formula. So it works. It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of well, that's not what I wanted. Let's get more descriptive. But no, it's definitely a very powerful tool. And I'm sure I haven't scratched the surface of yet. But a lot of really good stuff and a lot of stuff that's, like I said, sometimes you look like you're staring at a mountain, you don't know how to start, and it really helps chip away.
Love it. So
Totally
many
agree.
good things you've mentioned. Yeah. I got a proposition for you, Parth.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned was when it comes back with an email that you wanted to write, it's like, oh, this is not something that I would say, or I wouldn't say it like that. Maybe try to use a prompt in which say, look at my current emails in Outlook, because it does have access to it, whether you like it or not, it does have access. Look at my emails that I've sent, use my tone, and then write an email, etc., etc. Try that prompt and see how that changes the tone. It has done something similar for me, and I've done this with Copilot, and I've also done it with ChatGPT, which I've also given access to my Outlook, and it does work. Still, you have to change stuff around a little bit, but just like you said before, sometimes you just need a starter somewhere. Where do I start? And it will give you a great 80 to 90% starting point, and you just have to fix up a little bit before sending it.
Yeah, I definitely do that. Thank you.
The second thing you also mentioned was, and this is so true also, because I've done this exact same thing, where you tell it to summarize a meeting and give it the perspective, or give it the understanding, or give you the understanding of what Brian, I think you mentioned Brian was saying. Sometimes you thought Brian said something in the meeting, but he was thinking something else, saying something else, and AI picks up on it. Like, you know what, the tone of this message that Brian said tells me XYZ, and I would have never thought AI would pick up on that, and it does. So something also try.
I have a question around that. I don't know Zoom. I don't know how to raise my hand. Yeah, so around, I have the same experience, we have Copilot for Outlook. So there are only 2 options when you draft the email. So it will tell you, you know, like Copilot can draft with Copilot, or the other option is coaching by Copilot. You know, usually I just write an email, you know, like English is not my first language, right? So I use ChatGPT. I need to copy my email to ChatGPT and say, correct my grammar. And it does a pretty good job. But with that draft with Copilot, it just writes all additional things like super nice, which is not necessary. You know, I just want to get my point, right? So how you mentioned, you know, like how do we do that? You know, do I use draft with Copilot or coaching by Copilot? That option. Coaching is just it tell you, you know, a lot of things like your grammar or things, you know. But I just want to have an easy click, you know, just correct my grammar.
These two, right?
Yeah. So I don't like draft with Copilot.
Yeah. So this is the get suggestions to help write better emails. This is draft with Copilot. You know, I've used draft with Copilot for the most part, but that's actually a great question that folks who have used coaching by Copilot, what do you think? Are you using that also in tandem or just exclusively? Anybody?
I have not used that at all. Not for a specific reason, I just haven't used it, but definitely something I'll look into, yeah.
So here you go. I clicked on coaching and it says to get coaching for better, more well-crafted emails, type in at least 100 characters. It just wants you to give keywords and get started, and it's gonna, you know, quote unquote, coach you. And I think draft over here, which is the one that most of us use, basically it says, all right, why don't you just give me your raw thoughts and I'll go ahead and reformat or restructure it the way it should sound. Honestly, it's a little bit more confusing than it needs to be. If I were to give Microsoft some feedback here, say, you know what, just make it one option and say, make my email sound better, or just make this message sound, you know, more formal or more concise or whatever it is. So this is a little bit confusing over here. Ting, I've used.
Yeah, but how do you do that? You know, like look at my past email, just, you know, like learn how I write and then write just like me, not like AI.
Gotcha. That actually, I was saying from Microsoft 365, you can do that. So I would personally,
okay, not from here.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
if I would go over
It's a chat,
here.
right?
Exactly. And then in here, I could say exactly, do that.
Yeah, okay. I thought, you know, there will be a straightforward way in Outlook. I write something, you just correct me, and then I'll send.
That would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
But no, I don't think that's the case. By the way, because I'm sharing my screen anyway, this gives me an excellent idea, Ting, of a video that we can make for that. We have a bunch of videos on our Microsoft Copilot channel in the VisualSP. So we got 7 right now, but more are going to be going up as well on all things Copilot everywhere. You know, Copilot appears literally everywhere these days. So how do I use it in the best way? You mentioned in Outlook, I mentioned within Microsoft 365 homepage, but there's Copilot's Parth mentioned, for example, in Excel. You know, the PowerPoint came up. I think somebody mentioned that as well. It's just everywhere. So how do you best use it? In fact, I've been working on this presentation also, and I made a list of a few places. This is still not completed yet, but Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, Teams, SharePoint, Microsoft 365 apps, Dynamics, Power Platform within Power BI, Power Apps, everywhere you go, you see Copilot. So where do I go to use Copilot, or do I just go to a general Microsoft 365 page? These are all really good questions that we're all trying to figure things out right now with, you know, trial and error. One good thing is, though, everybody, you will not really break anything. You know, just go ahead and type in whatever, just like we're talking right now. You talk to Copilot. I even use a speech to text mechanism on my laptop. I just talk it with it, so I just feel very natural without caring about grammar or spelling or anything else. You just talk, and it's going to talk back to you. Worst come worst, it will not give you the answer that you're looking for, and then you just correct it, like, no, that's not what I was talking about. Here's what I'm talking about. So just don't stop experimenting.
But the YouTube video you showed, is it available in the VisualSP app? You know, we have the app.
No, these are just on, these are just on YouTube, but let me put a link over here so you have it here as well. if you want to see. Yeah, we have been putting a bunch of stuff here, and we'll be putting a lot more here as well.
Yeah, I think Jeff might have the same idea, like we are trying to promote the usage of VSPs, but now, Copilot is new.
Yeah.
So if it's all surface on the app, we just let people know, hey, watch this video, come to this help items, how to write your prompt better.
Yes. In fact, you're giving me another idea here to show you something else. Amanda, sorry, I'm hogging up the screen over here.
Oh,
But,
you've looked into this way deeper than I have.
so am I showing the right screen, by the way? Can you still see my Copilot?
Yes.
Okay. As you know, I presented many conferences, and one of the presentations that I'm working on currently is this particular one, which it's got a fairly good amount of content in here, but it's not done yet. It's talking about Microsoft Copilot adoption. Exactly how do you get people started and then get them stay interested in Microsoft Copilot and then help them contextually as they need it. So from what Ting Ting just said right now, it gave me pause to show you something that is within VisualSP, by the way. You can get that, Ting Ting, and others too. If you want, we can give this to you. Imagine someone comes to this page for the first time, okay? And let's say that person's name is Sam. I'm just making up a name over here. Sam comes here, he's like, I don't know what happened. This used to be all my different applications, and now it's just saying, hey, what can I do for you? I don't even know where to get started. Sam doesn't know where to get started. So we put this link. It says ideas from org name, and this org name, by the way, could be changed to, and this, for example, CPA, since we're talking about Comptroller Public Accounts over here. So ideas from CPA, that person says, okay, well, let me click on this because this has my organization name, and it would show them information that they need to know to get started. What is a prompt? And here's a few different types of prompts that I can use to help me. So it's guiding them at their moment of need when they are within that particular screen that they ended up at, maybe for the first time ever, and they're just wondering, what do I do from here? Does that make sense, first of all?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's very helpful. But so it doesn't surface on Teams client, right? You can only go to the website.
In this case, it's web. Yeah, it's web specific, but you can have this kind of thing anywhere. So it doesn't have to be just Microsoft 365. It could be within Dynamics, within Stream, within Planner, anywhere. So they know exactly how to use those things, or even within Excel Online, anywhere. But it has to be a web application.
Okay.
In fact, other thing that I was talking to Amanda about right before this call, we're all familiar with this interface, ChatGPT, and now it's got ChatGPT 5 or Grok or others like that. And I'm a pretty big user of all these systems. I use Grok, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, all different things. But sometimes for your users, you don't want them to go and start experimenting on those things, especially from the corporate laptops, right? So there is a way, since you have VisualSP, we can set you up with this also, by the way, just let us know. You can give them the following experience. Imagine they're at ChatGPT and you don't want them to be here. You want them to be in Copilot, not here. There's a help item that we can give you. This could automatically, let's say, get clicked. So I don't have to do this manually like I'm showing you over here. This is automatically clicked, and here's what it does. It blanks out the screen in the back, and it says ChatGPT is not a supported tool. AI governance policies state that all users must use Microsoft Copilot. And to go there, go to MS Copilot, which is linking now to your Microsoft 365 environment. And it brings them back to where you want them to be. Same thing with Grok. It would be very personalized. And this can be with any of those, by the way. Once again, pretend I'm not clicking on it. This is just happening automatically. That they come to grok.com and automatically says, Grok is not a supported tool. You have to go to Copilot. And they click on it and they go back to Copilot. So these types of governance and compliance things are also super necessary. So you get them to the right place before you get them to do the right thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of blocking it, it's also possible we just add the like allowed usage policy, right? We're allowed to use it, but you can't
Yes.
use our agency data.
Absolutely. If you, let's say, did not want them to be redirected to Copilot, you're okay keeping them here. Maybe like a banner that comes up at the bottom. Oh, sorry. I was trying to draw and then it started doing this. So banner, that's something that comes at the bottom, and where the banner says, whatever you wanted to say.
Oh,
The
yeah,
usage
this is pretty
policies.
cool.
And then you can have a button in there also saying, I accept. So that kind of stuff is what I would recommend you do.
Yeah, I think,
Done
Jeff,
something
maybe we can.
We've done something similar with pop-ups, like when we've redesigned a page or a tool or whatever it is, and then on the old one, rather than just archiving it, have a pop-up that says, hey, you don't mean to be here, you mean to be on the new one, and then have a link to the new location. It's been pretty useful.
That's
to be able to
awesome.
do that.
Yeah, you don't mean to be here. You're lost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
a
I
really
actually
common use
said
case.
that. I was a bit more professional than that, but that's basically what it said.
Copilot, make this a little bit more professional.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's another thing. I think anything that's going through our mind, we just put it in Copilot and say, how do I say this better? And it comes out with, yeah. So many good things you can do. Yeah.
Yep.
I would love to hear your perception so far. We've been going for about 40 some minutes over here as to what do you think about this roundtable? Would you like to continue having these types of roundtable? And if yes, if there are specific formats, something that we can share, like my idea was, and this is just an idea, we don't have to go this route, that specific prompts that you are finding useful, and I have many of them myself, by the way, that I can share, but specific prompts that have been useful to you that you're willing to share with others, and in the context where you were. Again, I'm thinking about part you mentioned in Excel. I'm telling you, that's actually one of the hardest ones. Everybody uses Excel, but everybody is wondering, what's the best prompt I can use in Excel to give me what I really, really want? And you had some pretty awesome ideas. So I would love to learn from that. I'm sure everybody else would love to learn as well. Ting Ting mentioned over here, for example, talking about Outlook and the Copilot over here. We'd love for you to show it. Like, what, here's what I'm struggling, or here's where I could use a better methodology. What's the best way to do it? And same thing for others. Susan, you had mentioned a few things as well. What do you guys think about this way of continuing a roundtable, or do you have different other ideas?
I really like the idea of sharing the prompts and then seeing how other people can perhaps build on them, give a different spin on something that perhaps you hadn't considered. I think that'd be great.
I concur. That's
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything from y'all is always good. So
there's so much we're learning as well, and we would love to share whatever we're learning. The presentation that I was showing you, it's not done. I just showed you the draft of it. Amanda knows I've been actively working on it for a conference, but that presentation also willing to share that it has lots of examples in there about Copilot adoption strategies. Parth, I've seen you unmuted. Did you want to say something too?
Yeah, no, I agree with everybody. I don't think that there is another area where we're able to talk to people from different industries, right? Like obviously we have friends, colleagues, whatever, but like when I'm out with my friends, we usually don't talk about how we use AI in our work, or our work. It's more like, how's work going? Work is going good, awesome, let's move on, right? So no, it's awesome. And like I said, I've never, healthcare and other things like that. So no, it's definitely interesting. And there's definitely use cases, I think, that we can learn from everybody that are applicable, right? Whether it's like Caroline just said, one prompt or an idea or something like that, where I know that there's people in my organization who use AI every day for like, hey, create my task list for today, or at the end of each day, right? Hey, create my task list for tomorrow. And I think one thing that I have to consciously remind myself of, and I actually have a post-it note on my desk at home that says record every meeting, because it's only helpful if you record the meeting, right? And so now at this point, right, I've told most of the people that I meet with, hey, this is just for me. And I've even gone from not recording it to just doing the transcript, because that's all I really need. But definitely something that I've been kind of mindful of is doing my best to get the transcripts, especially in those like one-on-ones with a client or your boss or a sales team where you have an agenda, but as you guys know, you go off agenda most of the time, right? And so making sure, hey, he told me that he sprinkled in this task for me, or he sprinkled in that, hey, can you send an email for me? And I forgot about that email. So definitely recording each call, but also, like I said, there's so many uses of it, and it's very interesting to hear how healthcare uses it or financial industry use it and things like that, because like I said, I'm never going to know unless you guys tell me. So
Yeah, that's excellent. Makes so much sense. How about you, Susan? How does this all sound?
I apologize. Someone walked into my office and I had to, I've
No,
been
no,
off the
no
call for
worries.
like 5 minutes because I had to deal with them. So I am lost at the moment.
Oh, no worries. We were just asking, if we continue this roundtable, what are the best ways that we can share with each other, what we're learning? So one of the things that I had mentioned was prompt sharing could be a good one. Where did you use a prompt that was helpful to you? What was the actual prompt? So to understand the context that you're providing it. What was the prompt? What was the outcome? And other ideas also. Another thing that comes to mind right now is Copilot agents. I showed you the research that I kicked off this morning, exactly the kind of research that it does. So sharing different things like that. What do you think?
So if you had having a roundtable like this is certainly something that can be done, but what if we had a place we could go, so that we're asynchronous? Maybe we're not all available at the same time, maybe a little community.
Absolutely. So one of the things we did a long time ago, also back in the SharePoint days, is we made a group on LinkedIn, which was just for this group over here. And then we shared content over there. We could do that again, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, something like that would be great.
Okay. Maybe you want to take a note of that too, Amanda.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking along the same lines. We could have a community page where we could all share whenever these things happen, whenever we come up with these amazing prompts that we're figuring out on our own time. Go in there and share it, and then have people comment on it, or and just keep improving on them, and then we'll have fun stories to talk about at the next roundtable.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the combination of the two, they can complement each other quite nicely.
Yes, I agree.
Everybody's on LinkedIn, right? So it's not a big problem then.
I also think that, like Asif mentioned, right? I think with our company, our organization, we recently stopped. IT recently blocked off, right, some other AI websites like ChatGPT, or early in the year I used to use it a lot in combination with Copilot, right? To see, hey, what does ChatGPT tell me? What does Copilot tell me? And recently, I don't know whether it's a Microsoft subscription thing, but it was just Copilot for us now. So, that's okay. I think Copilot's gotten a lot better as it's gone on. But I think there are other AI agents that are helpful sometimes, which I still use. I know, my bosses know I use it, right? I go offline, use it on my phone, things like that. But I think testing it out with other AI agents is helpful for me, at least, to make sure, right? Like, similar to before AI, just doing my research, right? And not just going to one source, doing my research, kind of getting a couple of ideas and then going from there, I think is helpful as well. Because you don't want to just have a one-track mind sometimes. And so I make sure myself, if I'm working on a big project or a big idea or something, just get another, what do you call it? Advice or another piece of suggestion. Just
another set of AIs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I forgot what they say when you're at the doctor. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
You have multiple diagnoses or whatever, multiple people to check you out. But yeah, or second opinion. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Get a second or third opinion. Is always helpful.
So true.
Totally agree. And that might minimize the risk of hallucinating AIs. Also, if it's a different agent and it's been trained differently on different data. Yeah, it's a big risk of hallucinations in AI sometimes, depending on what you're looking for. So that might minimize that. It's a good point.
Asif, I think I've heard you touch on this, Asif, about because as you just mentioned, that you use several different AIs.
Oh yeah.
And so I think it would be really helpful to get your take on, which ones are better for X, Y, Z. And I think you have touched on that in a different presentation, but that would be diving into that would be helpful, I think.
I can definitely prepare something to talk about that as well. I actually had this exact same question come up in a in-person session that I was doing about AI, Caroline, and instead of me, another participant answered this question beautifully, and I love that answer. It's like, why don't you ask the AI which is the best AI for this particular task?
Yeah.
I'm like, ha,
I'd also wondered about
sense.
pitting them against each other.
Yeah. And then you put that same prompt in different places, like, okay, I'm looking to generate a video of whatever, what's the best one? Of course, they might be biased a little bit, but honestly, I have done this experiment and I've seen where one AI tool says the other one is better at this. I love that. I'm like, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, authenticity from AI.
Cross-functional collaboration across different AIs. Yeah.
So great question. I'll definitely prepare something as well. But yeah, if we all have a few scenarios like that, we can show the scenarios, we can talk about the scenarios, we can ask questions, talk about things we're struggling with. And this could be like that good old SharePoint roundtable days where we all go out thinking, yes, I am so much better than I was coming into it. Like this hour, I've learned so much from all of you, and I'm sure Amanda will feel the same. There's so much great content you guys have shared. Parth, specifically with the Excel ones that you were talking about, I would love to see that because that's one thing that I'm personally struggling with where I want better prompts in Excel. So if you have a few, when we make that community, as Susan was saying, asynchronous communication, we'll make it on LinkedIn. Would love for you to share some of that stuff as well.
Yeah, more than happy to. Like I said, I think, like I said, even before I was here, when I was at, I was at Nielsen for 2 years. I also knew when I was at Nielsen, I'm not using Excel enough, right? Like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I still knew that Excel is way too powerful for what I'm capable of. And even then, back then, it was more like Excel, YouTube videos and things like that, but it was hard to digest. And especially now, luckily, I'm not working with thousands of rows of data, but back when I was, it was like, all right, I got to figure this out, right? And so now it's a lot better and more concise, where I am able to be, like you said, so specific. But I definitely would be more than happy to share prompts or ideas, or hey, I tried doing this, what do you think? Or the advice as well. Like I said, I think it's been a lot of trial and error.
Yes.
But it's worked out really well, and I think there's a component of me where I want to do it the old way, where I'm just used to the old way of manually doing it. And there's times when I'm doing a task and I'm 20 minutes in, being like, this cannot be the best way I'm doing it. It cannot be manually. Like, for example, I had a row of like 400 property names, and I was like, I need to find all the duplicates. And I was like, if name equals this, and I was like, I'm scrolling through 400. Did that one exist? Did that one exist? Versus there has to be a way to say, if it's a duplicate, highlight yellow and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, would love for her to see it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're at the hour. Thank you so much.
We do have this for 90 minutes, but
we do. Yeah, if folks want to continue, if you have something specific that you want to talk about, we can continue, or we can end here. And is 60 minutes good or 90 minutes good? What do you guys think for a roundtable like this?
I think 60 is good. Maybe if there's like a specific topic or a specific like follow-up one that we really want to get into, 60 probably is good enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree. 60 is probably sufficient because most of us probably have other meetings as well.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure. Susan, you have your microphone unmuted?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say 60. It was better for me, just in general.
There it is, 60 minutes.
Sounds
so we'll
good.
just end right here.
Let's ask AI what is better, 60 minutes or 90 minutes.
There you go. We should ask. Yeah, I love it. So one thing from us, we're going to make a LinkedIn community. We'll do it for these folks and we'll expand that community further so we can do asynchronous collaboration and communication. Second thing, we'll schedule on the roundtable as well for next time. I'm thinking we're going to do it monthly. We'll see. And if anything else that comes up in between, please do let us know. love to have this consortium to help each other with this whole Microsoft Copilot chaos that I hate to say it, but it's true. That Microsoft is pushing out. We just want to make things easier for all of us. So we'll try from our part, and if you all can try from your part too, helping each other, that'd be wonderful.
One thing
awesome.
that I would just add, this is just purely on a logistical point, is having the invite sent out as early as possible.
That was my fault this time, Caroline.
That would be.
I agree completely.
I was able to make it work with a little finagling, but yeah, the earlier the better, as far as I'm concerned.
100%. That was completely on me this time. Amanda mentioned herself, can we do it a couple of weeks? I'm like, oh, I'm out actually the next week. So we'll definitely do. We'll definitely do that.
Great.
All right, Amanda, any last words from you?
Nothing from me. This was great. I can't wait to see how many more customers join us for the next ones. And I'm definitely going to promote this in our customer meetings. So hopefully we'll get more people, get more takers next time.
And we'll get a lot more specific starting next time. We'll show very specific scenarios. And I got a bunch myself, and I'm sure all of you do. Because those scenarios are like when you get very, very specific, ideas in your brain just explode. I've had this happen many times in my own mind. So we're going to make this work. We're going to make it awesome. Thank you so much for all of you being here.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Elsie.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Have a great day.
All righty. Bye-bye.